Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
The Real Housewives is a guilty pleasure for most, but if you're looking to not feel guilty about that pleasure, tune in to Everything Iconic with me, Danny Pellegrino, where I break down all the messy moments and behind-the-scenes antics of Bravo's popular franchise. And on Everything Iconic, I also interview celebrity guests like Kelly Ripa, Keke Palmer, Drew Barrymore, Cameron Diaz, and more about their guilty pleasures, their past work, and so much more. So if you're pop culture obsessed and find yourself watching way too much reality TV like me, tune into Everything Iconic with Danny Pellegrino, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
How you doing, Huddy?
Yeah, I'm good, Paul. I'm very good indeed, yeah, thank you.
Good, and welcome all to My Life, Pain and Glory with the Governor, Alan Hudson. The only topic that we can talk about is Jack Grealish, Huddy. Your thoughts, your opinion, sir?
Well, we all know that events changed last week. 1 minute he was, left out again, and then he was put back in and then overlooked. So I don't really know. I can't really understand the thinking of Southgate. And when I see him talking after the game last night, he just made absolutely no sense whatsoever because it was a very, very poor, mediocre performance against the Danish team. Not that great. But and we keep hearing about how long he's had the job and how long he's been with the young kids and how he's brought them along and this, that and the other. And there wasn't any single sign of any improvement or the excitement that there is at the FA for me.
No, I absolutely agree. We're going to talk about the two games against Iceland and Denmark in a short while. But let's go back a little bit. You've done another wonderful piece in the Telegraph with Jim White, and you did the piece before Jack was called up. Was you surprised that he wasn't called up originally by Gareth Southgate? Because there's smacks of Don Revie and you with Gareth Southgate and Jack Grealish.
I'm never surprised when good players are left out the England team, I must be fair, and I wasn't surprised to see that he was left out. I was surprised actually that I got a couple of calls from people telling me, or emails and messages because I was away at the time, and I'm not surprised at all that he gets left out because why would Gareth Southgate want to break the mould? This is the English tradition of leaving their superior players out. It's and when I see him come on last night, substitute with 15 minutes to go, I had a feeling, a little bit of deja vu about when Terry Neal said to me one day at Arsenal, "You're going on," and I said, "No, I'm not." And had that been me last night, I might have refused to go on because that's no way to treat a player on his debut and bring him on 15 minutes to go when your team's playing absolutely nothing at all. They were terrible. All right, they were a little bit better than Denmark second half because they got bollocking at half time, but they were poor. And what was he trying to do with Jack? Was he trying to drag him down to their level, or was he hoping that he will get him out of jail? It was just a nonsensical substitution. Why did he bring him on? Was it hoping a little bit of genius to win the game? I don't think so, because if he felt that way, he would have played him from the beginning.
I agree, and personally, I would have called up Jack from the beginning. Gareth Southgate has often said that Jack's behind the likes of Kane, Sancho, Rashford, the more forward players, and he sees him as a wide, forward player. I find that absolutely incredible that a professional football player, an England manager, looks at Jack Grealish and sees him only in that position when, you're right, and for years, I call it the English disease, a total lack of creativity in the middle of the park, a central midfield player that wants to get the ball like you used to, like Alan Ball used to, like Tony Curry used to, and dictate the play. It just has been screaming out for years Spurs to call up Jack Grealish and give him that first start. And you're right, I was amazed when he brought him on with 15 minutes ago, because I said to Tom, I think he's going to do exactly what Revie done with Alan Hudson. I don't think he's going to play him. He's going to wait till they play against Belgium, and he's going to throw him in. And if he doesn't have a good game, he'll say, well, at least I've played him. That's that done. Forget Jack Grealish.
Yeah, well, it's got all the stuff. I mean, we did say when I spoke to Jim White about the thing in the Telegraph, is it the headline, the right headline would have been his history repeating itself, and it seems to have repeated itself so many times over the years. But now with this new era, I mean, they're a young, refreshing looking team, England, at the moment, and they're crying out for a player like Jack Grealish in midfield, to somebody to grab a hold of the game. And then when he came on, he was going in positions that he wouldn't go for his club. I see at one stage, right at the end, he gives the ball, he knocked the ball back to a defender, and he made a little run forward into a space, and the defender turned away and played it on the other side of the field, and Jack just stopped and put his hands on his hips, as much as to say, what's going on there. If you bring someone like Jack into the team, you've got to say to the players, get the ball to him. That's why he's here. It's no good not getting the ball into his feet if because he's a waste of time being there. It's like playing a Alan Ball up front and knocking crosses in. Yeah. Or the Liverpool players up front, and keep crossing the ball all the time because they're all 5'7". That's no good. You've got to knock it into feet. Jack Grealish's strength is playing to his feet, and this player just turned away from him and knocked him the other way. And there was just so many signs, that I've had to go through that all myself before, and it happened to me in a couple of England games, in the under 23 games, and before I got into the first team, and I was fortunate when I got in there that we had two England debutants along with me, Ian Gillard and Steve Whitworth from Leicester. They were playing their first matches. So that helped me, because I said to them, look, when you get the ball, don't be dilly-dallying or hitting the ball long. Just get it into me or get it into Alan Ball, and we'll take care of it. You just don't worry about that side of it. You just carry on with your defending and worry about getting forward, And that is a way that what defenders need telling.
But sadly, last night, what Southgate seemed to tell the defenders, because he changed his system, he went through at the back with wing backs. Every time you get the ball, hit a diagonal 60 and try and find the wing backs. And the midfield, it was just non-existent. The two midfield players that we picked, having played such an awful game against Iceland, and another game that was just crying out for Jack Grealish to stamp his mark on that England career that I think should bear fruit of at least 60, 70 England caps, if not more. The fact that sadly now he's almost 25, so he might not reach those figures, and certainly in a manager that doesn't seem to believe him, I'd be amazed if he got a dozen. But England do seem to have gone backwards, and that game last night, that was so dimensional. Any decent team could have worked that out within 5 minutes and absolutely annihilated England.
Well, as I said, he didn't make much sense after. And I listened to Gary Neville and Garrigan at half-time, and they were talking about, he kept talking about England playing lines and all this, and I didn't understand what they were talking about. It was nothing to do. Football has nothing to do with lines and everything else. They're playing in straight lines, and football's so simple. It's a very simple game where it's being complicated by certain people. And I don't know what Southgate's. There was no sign of anything that happened in the England team. I didn't see the Iceland game because I was away.
Yeah.
And I heard I didn't miss much. And I thought, well, last night I did have I was more hope than anything else that Jack would play. And what an opportunity to throw him in, after a really poor display, and throw him in and say, look, now let's play through midfield and play through Grealish. And, you know, it was the right kind of game for him because they had Ericsson in midfield, who's a player. You know, they weren't going to be play against anyone who was going to try and whack him or nothing like that. It would have been a perfect beginning for him. And Southgate didn't see it. It looks as if he don't want to see it. He don't want to know. He don't want to know this kid. It's quite sure. If he can't pick him in games in this competition, what chance he got of playing in the World Cup? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, or the Euros, you know, and I think it was clear.
Well, even the Euros, what chance in the Euros? But it's most certainly not the World Cup. If he's not going to, this is a competition when you've got to try these players and try and play through midfield, and you know, which we haven't done for so long. And it just seems that Southgate is so much like the others.
It's just incredible. It's as though they get these English managers off a production line picked by the suits that aren't qualified to pick the managers, and the managers aren't qualified to pick and infuse the team, shall we say?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking as we speak. I'm just looking at Aston Villa just paid a record signing for this Watkins. You know, they've gone and splashed £33 million out for the kid from Brentford. Now, the only reason they've done that is to keep Grealish there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered. They wouldn't have bothered. They would have been relegated if it weren't for him anyway, especially with his goal in the last match of the season. But now they know they've got to spend that kind of money to get 2 or 3, maybe 2 more signings like that, who will be able to get on the level to play with Jack. Now, if Dean Smith can see it, why can't Gareth Southgate see it? I mean, it's the difference between the two of them. Southgate's neck ain't on the line because he is one of the FA. He's part of the FA. He's part of their setup. He's been with them for years. He's been with the under-21s, and he's been, you know, all this rubbish about they won tournaments before, but take the notice of them youth tournaments. It's not the real. It ain't the real thing. Most of them players never really do it at the highest level. But yeah, I mean, Villa broke the bank for him, and yet Southgate don't see it. It's just, you know, every time you and I talk, we're just as if we're talking to the brick wall, doesn't it?
It is, yeah, and you know, most of the football supporters and to be fair, a lot of the press, there was an absolute backlash when Southgate didn't originally pick Jack, because he even called up Maitland-Niles before Jack, and I'm just banging my head against a brick wall, and I find myself out when I'm watching England now banging my head up against that same brick wall, and I just look at it, I just think, you know what, I don't think I understand football these days, because as you've always said, and as you alluded to earlier, football's a simple game. When you get the ball, give the football to somebody that can actually play football, and let's try and get into that final third and get the ball to the feet of players that can score goals, just like what you used to do with us and Jimmy. And it just ain't rocket science. But this claim seems to be, well, he's just a leader of a circus at the moment. It's all over the place.
Well, I mean, we go back to what you said earlier on about he's looking at Jack to be a forward player, but he doesn't play that way. No. He gets the ball deep. In the last few games of Villa, he was getting it in the full-back positions and starting to play and then linking up, and then the next minute, you know, he's in the last third playing balls through to the strikers. So he's not a front player by any stretch of the imagination. Jack Grealish, I couldn't play up front. A lot of players, midfield players of that ilk, they can't play up front. They're not front players. Harry Kane's an out-and-out centre forward, and he needs someone like Jack Grealish to provide for him. And he ain't going to get it with the midfield players that England have got at the moment. They just created nothing before he came on, and then when they put him on, they didn't even give him the ball. He had to go looking for it himself. It's too diabolical for words, and you see it coming. You know, in a way, I didn't want him to get picked because I wanted England to suffer without him.
Same here.
You know, I wanted England to suffer without and someone to finally turn around and say, look, what is hell going on here? Why isn't Grealish getting picked? Because we have absolutely no idea how to play the game in midfield. You know, and it's so outstanding that you don't even really need to know much about football to see that.
No, you don't. I mean, a young child just starting out in the game, or your granny could look at that and just think that's rubbish. When this boy come on, I mean, if you're looking at through the eyes of somebody that doesn't understand football, they would look at when Jack come on and say, when that number 17 come on, he wanted the ball. Okay, they didn't play it, but when he did get the ball, he had to go. He played the ball forward. Jack, when he gets on the ball, wants to get on the front foot, wants to play the ball forward. If there's nothing on, he will give a little give and go and get the ball the other side and create the play. Ericsson, you're right, a very similar player. Ericsson will come deep sometimes and get the balls off the centre half, and then he's in there supporting the forward players. You have players, you're right, Al, that are out and out forward players, and other players that aren't out and out forward players but are forward thinking players that lie a bit deeper, get the ball and create the play. You know, it's almost like, as you've said, an English Pirlo. We need that kind of player, because without players like that, England are just going to run on the spot and, you know, go round in circles, as we have done since the 70s pretty much.
Yeah, we're just there's no signs. There's no signs at the moment that Southgate. I think, you know, we kind of, when he took over, we thought we'll give the fella a chance. You know, it's a great position. He was in a great position as well, because he really didn't have anything to follow.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when Ferguson left Manchester United. It was a hard job it was an hard act to follow, but following an England manager now is not a tough job, because you only got to start playing the game properly. And, you know, it happened in 1996 when Venables took over. He picked the best England team we saw for years because he picked our best players. But it doesn't seem that anyone since wants to do that. You know, it's and last night I was choked last night when he actually brought Jack on, because I didn't want Jack to come on, because, you know, you could just imagine if Denmark had went and scored, they'd have won 1-0 and it would have all been, you know, very negative. And you would have heard the press say, well, Grealish didn't do much. Well, what can a player do in 15 minutes? I don't know. You know, I'd have been no good in 15 minutes. It took me about 20 minutes to get warmed up on the field.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a ridiculous substitution. And I'd like to really know the truth about why he did put him on. If he thought he was good enough, then he'd play him from the beginning. He's even played the lad from Leeds in front of him, who's never played a Premier League match. And now he's pulled him off and he's put Jack on. Now, that to me just seems a little bit Chinese.
And another thing about the boy from Leeds, I mean, Calvin Phillips, he's looked a decent player playing in the Championship, but Southgate had already said about Jack, I don't pick players that are in the Championship. I need to see him play in the Premier League before I can pick Jack Grealish. Then he goes and picks a Championship player that's never played in the Premier League. It's almost as though this clown talks in riddles.
Yep. I mean, I mean, he's all the signs are that he's contradicting himself so much. It's a little bit like listening to the Prime Minister at the moment. Yeah. You know, with the contradictions that are coming through. Exactly what you say. You know, he didn't fancy Jack until he played against Premiership opposition. He proved it last year by keeping Aston Villa up. And what more has the lad got to do to get a game? It's like when Waddington said about me. I mean, I know it was a lot of years ago, but he was just so fed up with it. And I played a game at White Hart Lane one day, and it was the first time Stoke had won there for 100 years, and I played really well. We were playing very well anyway, and he just said to the like, I call them the Fleet Street, I call them the London's press gang. He said to them, it was all over the papers, that Hudson will play for the World 11 before he does the England team, And it seems that way that I think Jack's along them lines. Jack is actually too good for England, in that respect. I've always said, as I said to Jim White, this fella, like Bobby Moore was in an England shirt, some players are born international players, and he's a born international player. To get a club player, he's a terrific club player, but the international stage is tailor-made for people like Jack Grealish to get the ball, just slow it down, do what he does himself, do his own thing, and create. And that's what he's good at. And I think the international, and this fella can't see it. And the biggest crime of all is the people at the FA can't see that he can't see it. So they're all in the same boat together, and they wonder why we haven't won nothing since 1966.
It just beggars belief. It's stupid beyond the pale, and as I say, it's there for everybody to see. Jack, going into a new season now, what would your advice to Jack be? Because, United have been sniffing around, as you've said. Brentford player Ollie Watkins had just signed. He scored a lot of goals in the Championship. I know Villa are looking to bring in one or two. Hopefully, Jack will stay in the West Midlands with the club he loves and just kick it on again to another level. And for me, all I would say to Jack Grealish is just keep doing what you're doing. And like what George did to you when Ramsey banned you, he sent you that telegram and just says, just show him pretty much what you're missing. You're the best midfield player in the country by a mile. That's pretty much what I'd say to Jack. What would you say to Jack?
Well, yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, he's while I was away, Don Shanks said to me, I was saying about he should play. I wonder where he'd play against Denmark. And Don turned around to me and he said, Alan, I said, I'm going to tell you now, if I was him, I wouldn't play. I would refuse to play. Say, no, you get out of this trouble on your own. Yeah. Don't throw me in now because you done that again. He said, I wouldn't play. And I always said that about after my first game against the Germans. I should have retired then because I knew he was going to put me in a bad position where I was going to do something like walk away or walk out or whatever. And Jack's in a position now where, yeah, it would have been, a lot of people would have called him foolish if he'd have refused to play last night, but I might have been in a situation where I said, no, if I'm not playing, I'm not going on as substitute for 15 minutes. That's not me. I need 90 minutes. That's my game. I want to do something for the 90 minutes. And now they've left him in a position. Jack, unlike many professional footballers today, loves the club he plays for. Yeah. He's very, very loyal. He's made that very clear. We see him cry at Wembley when Villa went through, and they weren't crocodile tears by any stretch of the imagination. The kid loves Villa. You can see the passion he's got for the club. He will not leave Aston Villa while they're in the Premier League, that's for sure. And his manager, by spending money, is telling him that he wants him to stay because he's getting better players for him to play with. And I think his manager, maybe they should kick Southgate out and put Smith in charge of the England team because he seems to know more about football than Southgate.
Absolutely. We could do with getting some one-to-ones with you and Jack Grealish, the governor and the maestro. And it'd be a fitting venue at Villa Park when the crowds are allowed back in there to get Hudson down there in a little bit of what do they have? These bars where what is it, Al? What's the word that I'm looking for? Oh, blimey. When you just have a word that leaves your head. Hospitality, I think, is the word that I'm looking for. Hudson and Grealish in the hospitality bar over a pint and you talking through, Jack, what it was like in the old days and you mentoring him. That would be my ideal too for England.
Well, I think that would make a good piece. I'd love to, as you and I spoke many times, I'd love to do a piece with Jack. I'd love to meet the kid. It's heartbreaking, really. I know how he feels. It's in a different situation for me because I was banned for 3 years. Ramsey banned me for 3 years, and that really turned me against England, playing for England. That turned me off. But this kid, you can see on his face. I mean, they stopped him in the gate the other day, didn't they, when he tried to get in or something? And he laughed. I mean, it's typical, isn't it? You know, it's typical. If it had had one arm and one leg, they'd have let him in. But you know, it is typical. It just seems that things in your life are not really that simple. Some players are picked and can't get out. Sometimes it's hard for some players to get out of the team than it is for some to get in the team, you know. And here's a kid we're crying out for this kid to play, and he's not wanted by the manager. It's a horrible situation for the young man. It really is, because he knows he's good enough. Half this country knows he's good enough. They've seen it last year. And yet Southgate can just sit there with that long face of his. He's got nothing to smile about. He had nothing to smile about after the Iceland game. He had nothing to smile about last night. And he didn't even mention his name. You know, it's the fella should have asked him, why did you leave it for 15 minutes to bring him on? That's what his job should have been, the interviewer. But he didn't even do his job, because that's what I'd have asked Southgate. How can you leave the player with that talent sat on the line for 75 minutes when we're watching a load of trash?
Absolutely, Al. Can't disagree with any of your sentiments about Jack Grealish. And let's hope that both Jack and Aston Villa have a great season. And there's a lot of love for you on the Aston Villa football groups, because I post all our stuff about Jack. And so many Villa supporters have very, very fond memories of you when you was a player. As do all of us of all football clubs, because as Tony Curry said this week in the interview, Alan Hudson was a genius, and I'll agree with Tony Curry there as well.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. Yeah.
I'll do. Till next time, pal. All the best, and you need to think of another 6 songs, because part 11, part 12 of My Life, My Music's coming soon, mate.
All right, pal. I'll speak to you soon, Paul.
Cheers out. Thanks, mate.
Keep banging that drum, pal.
We will, brother. Ta-ra, mate.
Ta-ra, mate. Ta-ra.
Kom då här, schöne Schwedchen, lass mich mehr alleine tanzen.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
The Real Housewives is a guilty pleasure for most, but if you're looking to not feel guilty about that pleasure, tune in to Everything Iconic with me, Danny Pellegrino, where I break down all the messy moments and behind-the-scenes antics of Bravo's popular franchise. And on Everything Iconic, I also interview celebrity guests like Kelly Ripa, Keke Palmer, Drew Barrymore, Cameron Diaz, and more about their guilty pleasures, their past work, and so much more. So if you're pop culture obsessed and find yourself watching way too much reality TV like me, tune into Everything Iconic with Danny Pellegrino, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.